Hello everyone. Now on stormy days like today, I always think of my sister's boy. He's a fisherman in the northeast. Every day he faces Mother Nature like today and the Luftwaffe and U-boats with Hitler's attempt to try and deprive us of our food. Now my sister writes to tell me about him quite often, and she was telling me in her last letter why this year's fish supply is only a third of what was available before the war. Apparently it's to do with a lot of the North Sea closed for shipping. The Navy have taken so many trawlers for their war effort, and there are only a quarter of our fishing vessels actually fishing today as opposed to before the war. So you can understand why supplies are really hard to get hold of, especially if you live in rural areas very inland away from the sea. Now I am surprised that Lord Walton hasn't rationed fish yet, but I suppose if you can't ration something that's not in a good or a regular supply, so perhaps that's why it isn't yet on the ration. But oh, the price of cod today, if you can get it. Of course, that's what's happened. The prices have gone up. I do hear though that very soon the prices will be controlled, so at least that may stop them rising any further. Now, I was also pleased when I was listening to the Kitchen Front on the wireless the other morning. Mr. Ambrose was talking about a new fish. Now, this is being fished in Icelandic waters, and it's being sent over to us by our Canadian friends, salted and dried for the very long journey that it's having to face. But I must admit, it didn't sound very nice. But we have to remember, when fishermen are brave enough to face the mines and foes for us, you surely can be brave enough to face a fish that's new. So that's what I did. Yesterday I popped into town and I queued at old Bill's Fishmongers, and I took a pound of this new fresh salted cod that Mr. Ambrose had been talking about. Now Bill had already done the soaking of the fish. He has to soak it for between 24 and 48 hours, skin side up, in fresh cold water, and then we can purchase it as we would any normal white fish. Well, I've brought it home. I rinsed it under the tap another time, and then I've just baked it in a very low oven, as you can see, until it's soft. Now, I must admit, it does smell a bit of the seaside when those starfish have died on the beach, but I'm prepared to give it a try, and I'm sure, even though it may smell not that pleasant, by the time we've cooked it and used it in a recipe, it will taste wonderful. So what I've done is I've started to mince this cooked fresh salted cod. For this recipe, which is a delicious fish paste recipe, I require about 3 tablespoons of the fish. So I'm going to mince it until I've got enough to put that into a bowl with the other ingredients. Now, a little bit more. This fresh salted cod, as I say, do make sure you ask your fishmonger how long he's salted it for. I've heard that some fishmongers aren't doing it for long enough, and it means that the fish is far too salty if the person who buys it just cooks it as they've bought it from the fishmonger. So do always ask, and if it isn't for long enough, do a little bit more soaking at home to get the salt out. So here's my minced, cooked, fresh salted cod, and that looks just about right. Put the rest of that in, any left over, and I might make some rissoles for supper with it, fish rissoles with a bit of breadcrumbs and oatmeal. But I'm also now going to add to this some flavouring, a little bit of salt, just a little, and pepper, and I'm going to add about a dessert spoon of chopped parsley. Now the flavourings I'm using in this recipe, there are two alternative recipes. You can either use, I don't appear to have another dessert spoon there, so I will measure it as, of course, 1 dessert spoon is the same as half a tablespoon. Pop that in. Now you could use 2 teaspoons of Worcester sauce, but we're not much of a fan of Worcester sauce in this family. So I'm doing the other recipe, which is 2 dessert spoons, so therefore 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Pop that in. And then I'm also going to put in a teaspoon of mustard. I've just made some already from mustard powder. Pop that in. So as I say, you can omit the vinegar and the mustard and use just 2 teaspoons of Worcester sauce instead. I'm also then going to add 2 or 3 good tablespoons of mashed potato, and we're going to mix that all in. Give it a really good beat because you want to make this as smooth as you possibly can. Lastly, I'm going to add a dessert spoon of softened margarine and beat that into the ingredients to give a lovely smooth fish paste. Now this fish paste will last up to 3 weeks if you don't use it all. I mean, I'm going to get through quite a lot today because the young ones of the family have gone out to see their friends, because of course they're not going to be able to see them now for a good few weeks, so they'll be coming in hungry at supper time or later on, and I thought I'll just give them a delicious sandwich. Now this is so lovely and moist. As you can see, you won't need to waste any of your precious margarine ration on spreading the bread. This delicious fish paste can go straight onto a slice of bread, which I'm going to do in a moment. But if you don't want to use it all, pop it into a small pot and just melt a little layer of fat over the top to seal it, and that will stay fresh for 3 weeks. Now let's make that delicious sandwich. And now I'm going to pop this delicious fresh salted cod fish paste liberally into the national wheatmeal loaf, pop a lid on it, cut it into portions, and then serve garnished with parsley and watercress. If you've got no watercress, don't forget that dandelions, fresh from the garden, are delicious as a garnish or in a salad, and are full of vitamins and will take the place of something like watercress beautifully. There we have a delicious snack for the young ones when they come in tonight. Fish paste made with this new fresh salted cod all the way from Iceland.